What's your take on that? I mean, the SEC making an announcement, could that blow it up like that?
Well, I mean, first of
combined with
all,
war, everything else.
maybe there are, again, I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe there are people within the system that actually have morals. There was something similar with the FDIC a year ago where they basically said that if the public really knew how bad it was, it would create a panic. So we can't get this information out. And that made it out to YouTube. And someone posted it. It was an internal meeting, and someone was videoing it and basically said things are really bad. And if the public really knew, it would create a panic and a bank run. We can't allow that to happen. I think the people inside know more than we would think. I mean, do you think there's any coincidence that Paul Pelosi is a stock savant? Everything that he does is tied to information he's getting from his wife. It's illegal, it's immoral, but it happens. And I think in this case, yeah, insiders know. I look at the central banks. The central banks have been buying at a level that no one's ever seen before. They're not just the wealthiest, they're the most well-informed traders in the world. You look at in 2017, the German Bundesbank brought all their gold back from the New York Fed after 6 years of price falling down, and then made a big deal about it. Followed shortly thereafter, within weeks, Bank of Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, the Czech National Bank, the Dutch National Bank, they all did the same thing. Following year, they bought more gold as a group in 2018 than they did in the 60 years previously combined, and doubled that in 2019. And then mysteriously, coincidentally, the Bank of International Settlements, the most powerful bank in the world, said, by the way, gold is now tier 1. You're telling me they didn't know 3 years in advance that the Basel III agreement required them to do these things in order to better position themselves, to repatriate their gold and to massively load up on it? What I'm getting at is that there may very well be coincidences, but not at that level. The fact that it was leaked and then retracted, someone obviously got their ass handed to them. But yeah, I mean, it's all about information. And the lack of information to the public is the worst part about it, because if you would have told me, Chris, at any time in my life, and I've been doing this since I was a kid, since I was 19, that candle that you showed that ticked 2,700 on the futures, that we would be at $2,700 gold and no fanfare, none by the media, no talking about it, I'd say, what are you smoking? Because it's just been completely ignored by the mainstream. And yes, there are crumbs dropped at our feet, and maybe it is for the insiders. Maybe it's to say we told you so. It was public information. I don't know, but what I will tell you, it's probably not a coincidence that they know what's coming. It's mathematics at this point. We're too far down the rabbit hole, and I think that is exactly what gold is reacting to. Now, I don't know what day, I don't remember what day the interest rate cuts were. I don't think it was the 9th. It was after that. Maybe they knew that the rates were being cut. And the ironic thing about a 50 basis point rate cut is that we're supposed to have such a great economy, yet they revise 1 million jobs. We're supposed to have such, low inflation, but the CPI is a joke. And it's just maybe the people in charge know that the numbers that are being touted out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we should take the L out of the BLS and just call it what it is, BS. And maybe they know that they're fugazi. I don't know. But at that level, yes, I do believe there is a lot of inside information, but I'll just simply make it easier. The most well-informed traders in the world know that this is about mathematics and where we are going, and that they're the ones driving the market. It's the central banks largely. Most of the participation that we've seen in this rally over the last 2 years has been void of Americans. You look at the ETFs for 2 years, they've gone straight down. They are now ticking up. All of a sudden, you look at a positive real yield. Forget about the fact that we know the CPI is a lie. If we take their numbers at face value, 5% interest on a 6-month treasury and 3% inflation, yeah, that's a good deal. Fine. That's a positive real yield. It's a strong dollar and negative outflows out of the ETFs. What we're seeing is the opposite of that now. We're seeing the ETFs pick up. We're seeing the Fed pivot and the dollar fall. Maybe the big money is finally waking up. And much like something called the Cantillon effect, where when money is printed, it's the people closest to the money that have the disproportionate advantage. The hedge funds who can borrow it next to nothing and plow it into assets and drive the prices way up, or the sophisticated money who gets it first, and by the time it works its way through the system, it causes higher inflation and the dollar's worth less. But the assets that those people bought at the beginning are worth more. It's the same thing here. The information, by the time it trickles down, excuse me, I'm battling a cold. By the time it trickles down to all of us, peasants, gold's much higher. Here we are at all-time highs. And I think there is danger in the markets, 100%. And I do think that there is insider information at that level. Nothing surprises me anymore. I mean, there is a fine line between conspiracy and reality, and much of the things that we talk about in years past, people would have said are crazy, conspiratorial. I remember talking about JP Morgan manipulating the market, and Doug Casey got up right after I spoke, and he said, that's not true. That could never happen. The traders at JP Morgan could never keep their mouth shut long enough. Kind of bitch slapped me in front of everybody and 500 people. Several years later, he called and apologized to me personally and said, I'm sorry, I was wrong, because JP Morgan just paid a $920 million fine for manipulating the metals market. So there is a fine line between conspiracy and reality. And I think that where we are at this late stage of the game, the insiders know what's coming. And I don't think there's a coincidence to that, Chris.
How much do you think war is going to affect? So my nephew is being deployed, and things are changing. He was telling me a lot about it. He's over here yesterday. He actually held the camera for me. And we're going to war. I know we're already at war, and there's some kind of war in Ukraine that I believe that to be a rumor of war. There's more nightclubs and restaurants open now than before the war, as weird as that is. But when you talk about going to war where he's going, and he wasn't allowed to say, possibly China, protecting Israel, that kind of stuff, and BRICS against NATO, whatever it is, World War III. I hope not. I hate to even talk about it. What is that going to do for the value? I'm just quit talking about price, because price will be one day we won't even bother talking about dollar-denominated gold and silver. What do you think's in the mail there?
No, I mean,
from what you've lived through. I know you don't have a crystal ball.
Well, it's look, again, what's different now than in all the years I've been doing this is the way that the United States is viewed. Vladimir Putin gave a speech in St. Petersburg a month ago. He said the Bretton Woods system is dead, and it's now just based on trust. And that trust has been squandered in many respects. And not only that, our image has been squandered. People look at this country as what the hell's going on there? As we talked about a few minutes ago, the wokeness, the lawlessness, the lack of character, all of these things on top of the judicial system, electoral system, all of that is factored into the way the world looks at us. The world is not afraid of us any longer. That's for damn sure. But when you talk about, for example, a hot war in the Middle East, you have the majority of the world's oil production there. And obviously, this would lead to higher oil prices, which in and of themselves is quite inflationary in terms of price inflation, not actual monetary inflation, but price inflation. And it's a big deal. I mean, and what it really does is, I think, again, it's going to make people think twice about where they're parking their money into traditional assets. I think that it's a scary deal, to be honest with you, because this isn't a normal kind of war. You have, for example, Iran is a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's the largest regional financial and military organization in the world, and they're also a member of BRICS, as you mentioned, and Russia has signaled that they are standing behind Iran. What does this ultimately mean? I don't know. But if you look at all of these ships that are lined up through the Middle East in the Gulf, it's pretty crazy. It's like we have our entire Navy over there. And this could very quickly spring into something that none of us should ever hope for. It's not a good thing. I will say this. In years past, when there's been a war, you would think gold would go to the moon. But the West, who's had firm control over the price of gold, see, the West understands what gold is, but they don't want any of us to understand what it is. They understand that it is wealth, but it is the antithesis to the system. I remember in just about it, Gulf War, the very first one, Operation Desert Storm, any of them, when the battle starts, the price of gold falls. And it's as if they are trying to delink the rationale people would have for feeling what we're talking about here. Oh, just keep on walking. It's an archaic relic of the past, so they will manage its ascent. Rising gold in the midst of a hot war signals problems with the dollar, obviously, signals problem with what's going on back home. Ultimately, gold will go higher than anyone thinks possible. I'll give you a better way of looking at it. I did an interview recently with a gentleman who told me, Andy, money creation, by his estimate, for the last 10 years has averaged 7% in the United States. And this is all tied into it because the cost of war is incredibly inflationary, and they will have to print money to fund these wars, to buy munitions, to do all of these things. Anyways, he says it's been 7%. Inflation is an increase in the money supply, period. It's not log jams at the port. It's not oil embargoes. That's price inflation. Inflation, monetary inflation, is inflating the money supply. It's an increase in the money supply, period. Every time it is a monetary event. And if we've been adding 7% per year, one of the things that they don't teach kids in college, or in high school rather, is the law of 70 seconds. It should be taught as soon as you're able to do multiplication. It should be, and division, because it's maybe the most important thing for all of us. Interest rates, right? And understanding the laws of compounding. I, at the beginning of this, talked about my father, who helped me understand the laws of compounding of time. You didn't go to the gym for 2 days to look like you are. You went to the gym continuously, methodically, over and over and over and over and over again. And compounding of time and effort got you to where you are. And the same thing is true in just about anything that you want to be good at. You have to allow the laws of compounding. Well, the laws of compounding in terms of interest rates say you take the number that you are being paid or are charged and divide it into 72. That's law. It will tell you how long before your principal doubles. So if you buy a bond paying 7% in 10.2 years, you will double the principal. Well, if money creation has been running 7% per year in the United States, and that's probably low, but let's just play along. That means 10 years ago, the dollar was worth twice what it is today. It's lost half of its value. You go back to 10 years ago, gold was $1,200. So gold did not just over double to where we are now at 26 and change. The dollar lost half of its value. And I think in a war, in particular, where we are at this stage of the game, where the world has lost confidence in this country, certainly in our leadership, and who the hell's running the ship right now? I think that you could expect to see a dollar really take it on the chin, and therefore to see gold rise in terms of dollars, or the dollar fall in terms of gold. So ultimately, much, much higher. And it's something that really is quite concerning, because this could very quickly turn into something much dirtier than just speaking about war. These are nuclear armed countries. And although Iran isn't, they're very close to being able to. And, they were sending hypersonic missiles into Israel the other night that were making it through the Iron Dome. If they have the chance to put a nuclear warhead on one of these, God help us all in this country and this world. And not something that I'm hopeful for at all. I wish it would all go away, but I think we need to be realistic about what that means to our finances. And at this stage in the game, it's not about return on your money, it's return of your money. And for me, it's gold and silver in your own possession. In a world of systemic compounding, systemic risk all around the globe, I think it's time to be a contrarian, to rein it in. Because if I had to guess, by the end of the year, you could see gold as high as $3,000. Now, Goldman Sachs is saying by the end of 2025, 3,100. I think you could see it by the end of this year, the way things are going leading into this election. But that's not why I own it. That's not why I tell people to buy it. $3,100 gold doesn't mean gold went up. It means the dollar got its ass handed to it. And ultimately, I think that's where we're going. And a hot war that we were dragged into would only accelerate and exacerbate that.